Yeah, I have no idea what was going on there. And anyways, I had to completely reset everything, and now it works again. So I have no idea what happened, but we are back in business. I hope that you are jumping back on with me here. Let me see if I can get everything up and going again like I had it. Let's see here. I'm going to share everything. Get everything back going. Hey, you can hear me now. Awesome. Awesome. Yeah, so I don't know what happened. That's the first time this ever happened. I will say I've had my computer on for which I usually shut my computer down every once in a while, but I've had my computer on for 2 weeks straight, never turned it off. And so apparently something went wrong, and it's all good now though. I had to reset everything, and we're back to where we should be. So that's great. All right, so let's get to it. We done wasted enough time trying to figure out everything. So let's get to it. This tonight is a Christian TikTok. Now, if you don't know, Beyond Belief does have a TikTok. We are on, and it's basically just shorts from these videos we're doing right here. And so tonight I want to go on and I want to look at some TikToks that are interesting to say the least. So one that I've been asked about, these two right here at the top, I've been asked several times about. And so we're just going to dive on in, and we're going to get started since it's already 9:15. So here's the first one. And you might have seen it before. If you have, great. If you haven't, here we go.
I grew up in an old Pentecostal church, and a preacher one time came through and told a story about this woman. I don't know if it's a true story.
So I love that part. He says, I grew up in an old Pentecostal church, and there's a story. I don't know if it's a true story, but I'm going to keep telling it like it is a true story. So let's dig in.
But it always encouraged me. This woman, she was a widow. She had nothing. She had no food. And every day she would get down on her knees and she would pray, God, fill my pantry.
All right, so this old woman's getting down. She's praying to God, fill my pantry with food.
My pantry with food. And one day there was a knock at the door. When she opened up the door, right there on the doorstep was all the food she had been looking for. She said, oh my goodness, God did it. God did it. God did it. Right? Well,
okay, yes. So, if I'm sitting here praying to a God every day, and God, I'm praying specifically for, fill my pantry with food. I need food at my doorstep. And I go outside and there is food on my doorstep, exactly like I've been praying for. Like that would blow my mind too. So let's follow along.
Right while she was praising God, a man jumped out from behind the bushes and he said, aha, I'm your next door neighbor and I'm an atheist. And I heard you praying yesterday for God to fill your pantry. So I went to the grocery store, I bought all the groceries, I put them right here on the doorstep, and I hid in the bushes, all to watch you praise a God that does not exist.
All right, so, yes. So here's one of the things that Christians will do. Okay, as far as, my Lenta, we've already got chat galore. And I can't read that language. I'm sorry, but I cannot read that language. If you could translate to English, that would be amazing. But anyways, so we have this thing that happens, right? We've been praying for this thing, and it happens, right? And so I've heard a lot of times that explains miracles, right? Because I prayed for this thing and it happened, when every time there's another explanation for what has happened. In this case, he tells the story of the explanation. Somebody overheard their prayer and went and got the groceries for them. Now, in this case, it just happened to be an atheist, and so he was trying to show her, hey, this isn't God, this is me. I went and bought this. And so we'll continue at that point.
She said, God did it. God did it. God did it.
And I will say, as a Christian, I would have ate this stuff up like Cinnamon Toast Crunch. This thing would have been. I would have shared this so much on social media.
No, you are not listening. You are praising the wrong God. I heard you praying the prayer from the window. I don't believe in God. There is no God. to a God that does not exist.
Again, so he's trying to explain to her, okay, yes, like, I overheard you several times, so I went and did this just to prove, okay, God's not doing anything, so I'm going to do it. So let's see how he reacts to that.
This woman, she doesn't know much, but she said God did it. God did it. And he made the devil pay for it.
I'm telling y'all, I would have ate this stuff up when I was a Christian. Okay, so I get what she's saying. She's saying, you know, God did it, and he even used an atheist to do it. So, like, either there's a real God, and he compelled this person, which is against everything because we're supposed to have free will, but he compelled this person to go out of his way to prove to this woman that God does not exist, just so that she could have food and then prove to this atheist that he does exist. What he is saying, the atheist in this case is saying, is, hey, like, there is no God, or else you would have food. I went and bought food for you. Like, and in just about every case, like, you got starving kids all over the world. It's people that go and do things. There's nothing miraculous about it. It's people going and doing things. But as you can see, whoop, call in if you disagree. Oh, I disappear up here. But call in if you disagree. I would love to talk to you about it. Or if you've seen something even more amazing.
I'm trying to tell you about God.
All right, so that was the first one, and I just wanted to react. So how does that make me feel? It frustrates me because I know as a Christian I would have ate that kind of stuff up. But if you think about it logically, it doesn't prove a God. It's just one of those stories that riles Christians up and gets them excited, honestly. And I would have ate it up, so I'm not faulting you for that. All right. So what this one is, this is a speaker, and he's saying that he went to a debate, and there was an atheist there, and he was debating the atheist. So let's dig into it. I've also been, we got a comment here. I'll ask the obvious question. Where was the church in this little story? Why was the church not making sure she had food? Wow, Justin, I hadn't even thought about that. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know that question. Maybe she was just trying to fully depend on God and not ask for help. I know a lot of people are like myself, don't like asking for help. So maybe that's one reason. I don't know. But again, he said at the beginning, I don't know if it's a true story, but I'm just going to tell it like it is. So, all right. So this is a video that's been going around on Facebook and other things. And so I wanted to share it as well.
He said, there is no God. You cannot be a rational person and believe there is a God. I said, okay, help me out with this. I want to show you something. I said, this circle represents knowledge. Everything that can ever be known about any subject fits in there. All the sciences, all the arts. You're an intelligent man. You studied at this university. How much do you know of everything that could possibly be known? So he took a pen and drew that and he went, I reckon I know this much.
Which mine will probably be less than that. I don't know a whole lot. I know that I'm here and that's about it. And I know that my microphone's working now.
Wow, you're intelligent. He said, yeah, I am. So that's brilliant. I said, that's what you do know. He said, yes. I said, that's what you don't know. He said, yes. But this does exist. You just haven't discovered it yet. Yes. Therefore, could God not exist in a dimension that you haven't yet discovered? Answer, yes.
Again, as a Christian, I would have ate this stuff up. So I want to go back here. Let me start over here. So everything that can possibly be known, right, is this circle. And he's saying, how much do you know of that? Just a little bit, right?
So he took a pen and drew that.
And he drew that. That's how much he knows.
I said, wow, you're intelligent. He said, yeah, I am. So that's brilliant. I said, that's what you do know. He said, yes. I said, that's what you don't know. He said, yes.
So you got this circle of everything you don't know, or this part of the circle of everything you don't know, and I know this little bit. And so he's pointing out, hey, couldn't God be in some part of the circle that you don't know about? Some part of knowledge that you don't know about? Yes. And then we'll continue and then I'll follow up.
Yes. Therefore, could God not exist?
Okay, could God exist? Oh, wait a minute. I'm backwards here. Could God not exist somewhere in that circle? Yes, he could. Absolutely he could. And so could magical flying unicorns. so could fairies, so could Bigfoot. Anything could be in that circle that we don't know. Okay, you cannot prove something. You can't prove a negative. So anything could be in that circle. If you can think of it, it's in that circle, right? Of things that you may not know yet. Because we don't know it, and we don't know exactly what it could be. And so that's the whole point. Anything could be in that circle. That doesn't mean that we should believe these things. Magical flying unicorns are in that circle as part that we don't know, right? We don't know anything about magical unicorns because we don't have evidence of any magical unicorns. But in that circle, he's saying, could they exist? Yes, they could. Magical unicorns could exist. But there's no evidence. So, do you believe in magical unicorns? No. Why? Because there's no evidence pointing you to that. And so, do you believe in God? No. Why? Because the evidence that we do have is not sufficient enough to grant, yes, with absolute certainty, yes, there is a God. And so, while the circle, I would have ate it up as a Christian, while the circle illustration here is certainly, again, passionate and gets you excited, it really isn't saying a whole lot when you think about it logically.
In a dimension that you haven't yet discovered. Answer, yes. Therefore, sir, I would suggest you're not an atheist, you're an agnostic, and one step closer to knowing my...
And also, I want to throw on there, I don't think he realizes the difference between an agnostic and atheist. Like an atheist, like, we're not saying that there is no God. Like, that's not an atheist. An atheist is just saying, like unicorns, I don't have evidence to believe it, therefore I don't believe it. Right? Like, there's no reason to believe. Now, an anti-theist, they can say with certainty there is no God, and I'm not there. I don't see how anybody could get there because of the circle illustration. Could there be some entity out there that we don't know about? Sure, because we don't know. And so, excuse me, I had a text message. And so we don't know, right? And so how can anybody for certain say that there's no God? I don't think you can. But I also think he confuses what agnosticism is. Agnosticism is saying there's no way you can know. Like, and I think if you're going to look at the God of the Bible, and if he's all powerful, certainly he could present himself in such a way where we all could know with 100% certainty. There wouldn't even be a debate about it, right? And so, yeah, I think he misrepresents what agnosticism and atheism is. Now, I want to go to this one just because, guys, this one really touched me, and I don't want to say it jokingly, but you guys got to listen to this, okay? This is a woman here. She's going to prove or present a miracle that happened in her life, okay? And this is American Christianity at the heart, right? This is American Christianity.
Do you know that God can perform miracles?
Man, she is emotional at something already. I'm excited to hear what it's about.
I want to share something that just happened to my family, to me. This very moment. That's why I'm crying emotional right now.
It sounds very important, like something amazing happened in her family.
They're tears of joy. Because, and I wasn't going to share this. I don't like sharing everything on social media that happens in our lives. But I thought this was worth sharing.
What could it be? I'm excited.
We are annual pass holders at Disney. And there
What?
are certain times of the year that annual pass holders are not able to go to Disney, specifically on very busy holidays, such as Thanksgiving.
Don't tell me that God is going to get your family in on Thanksgiving.
Because obviously they give preference to people who fly out here and are traveling here. So my family is scheduled to go to Disney next Wednesday, which is the week after Thanksgiving.
Okay.
But mistakenly, I told them that it was today, this Wednesday. So I had an appointment I had to be at.
So I assume, yeah. So she's saying they were scheduled next Wednesday. She accidentally told them it was this Wednesday.
So they drove out ahead of me, and they were waiting for me to meet them there. Well, as soon as they arrived at the gate and they scanned their tickets, the guy told them, "You're not scheduled to be here this week, and we can't let you inside of this park. You're mistaken. It's next Wednesday." The guy told them, "There's no way we can let you in. Tomorrow's Thanksgiving. This is Thanksgiving week. The park is completely full. There's no way you're gonna get in. You might as well go home." So my mom messaged me, and she was like, "You were mistaken. It was not today. It's for next week." And I was just immediately wrecked. Like my little sister was dressed as a Disney princess right now. She was so excited.
Now, that is sad. Let me say that. Like, these people have probably been planning this for a while. Like, they have been, looking forward to this, and especially the little girl. Like, I can imagine this is a devastating thing. So don't get me wrong. I'm not laughing at this situation. Okay? So, wanted to throw that out there.
Excited. My whole family was there, and I just felt like terrible. So she just tells me I'm here right now, but I don't think there's any way they're going to let us in by what he told me, and I'm going to go home. And so I sat here where I am right now, and I started praying, Lord, please do a miracle right now. God, it's my fault. I don't want my family's day ruined because of this. Please do a miracle, please, because I know this is not impossible for you. Well, less than 5 minutes after I finished praying, my mom called me and she said, "Hey, I was about to drive home, and the manager came up to me and he said that he figured something out, and he's going to let us in the park, including you, when you arrive here."
Listen at the music slowly just getting louder and louder and louder, just trying to draw out that emotional part of your brain, like just to get you emotional, right?
Listen, I want to tell you this right now because you need to know that there's no miracle too small, no miracle too big. There's no problem that our God can solve. He is a miracle worker, and yes, He can do it. He can do the impossible. That is His specialty.
Okay, so let me point this out for the obvious. Like, He can do the impossible. Like, we talking about getting into Disneyland, people. Like, we ain't talking about growing limbs back or something like that. That would be impossible. Like, we're talking about, can you imagine, you're the manager of Disneyland for a second, right? You see this family, they've come in expecting to go in, and it's obvious this little girl is dressed up. They're expecting to go in, right? And so, well, what probably happened was they reached this worker first, and the worker's like, "Sorry, like, this ain't your day. Like, you're scheduled for next Wednesday. Can't let you in." And probably, I don't know, I wasn't there, but probably she said, "Can I speak to your manager?" or something like that. The manager comes over and sees this family that's expecting to go in. They're here, they're dressed, they have a pass. And so he lets them in. I don't see the miracle. I think this would have happened whether she had prayed or not, is what I'm saying.
So give everything to Him. Understand that He is in control and He can do it.
So, I'll be honest with you. When I first saw this, I thought that she was about to tell me like some amazing story in her life, and then it went to Disney, and I was like, "What? This is worse than like God help me find my keys or something like that." Oh me. But anyways, let's see. We've got some more. I wanted to share this one.
If I've ever seen a miracle in all of my time, this was one. We call our
So this is a miracle that he's wanting to present as evidence for miracles, but for God as well. So let's listen.
parents, everything's fine, right? And then like the state trooper has to come talk to us. He's like, guys, I know this is really hard. I'm so sorry. I just know how many casualties there are. We're like, casualties? What do you mean? He's like, no, this isn't a laughing matter. How many people died in this car accident? It was just us three. We're fine. Nobody died. And he's like,
so the cop comes and he just assumes that, like, he looks at the cars and like, this must be a bad wreck. Like, how many casualties are there? Like, and I get that. Like, some wrecks look awful. If you watch NASCAR, like, the wrecks look awful. And some drivers get out fine.
Like never in my life have I seen something bad where no one died. I did not feel impact, not even a little bit. What happened, guys? And they're like, no, we don't feel either. And so I'm like, Logan, what happened? I heard you hit the gravel, and then I felt something pushing down. Something was keeping me in that seat. Had a really strong
Potentially like inertia.
impressions. There were some things I was supposed to do. I made a stupid decision. I could have been easily saved just by not taking that trip. I was stubborn. I wanted to make it all the way through. Even so, I had some guardian angels protecting me and my brother and had some to do. If I've ever
Okay, so this guy getting stuck in a car crash, and I've heard this story over and over from when I was a Christian to now. Like, things happen, bad things happen, car crashes happen, what have you, near death, or should have died, or whatever, but they end up not dying, right? Does that necessarily mean that a God came through and miraculously saved them, or did it just so happen? I would be interested, was he wearing a seatbelt? How bad was it? Where did they hit? You would have to investigate the crime scene. Or not a crime scene, but you'd have to investigate the accident to see exactly what happened. And that would just be the start of saying, these guys should have died. But then to say, why didn't they die, would take another step. And then it would take even a further step after that to say, these angels swooped in and helped save them. Because ultimately what you're saying is, they saved these three guys because they had more to do. You're ultimately saying for every other person that's had a car crash and they died, that God didn't save them, or angels in this case didn't save them. And so that runs into a whole nother problem. But again, so let's say we do have a crime scene, right? There's a person on the floor. We're wondering who did it. Kind of like he's saying, how did we survive? Okay. And you follow the evidence where it lies or where it takes you. And in this case, I don't know who did it, right? I don't know. There's just a person there. I don't have any clues. I don't know what happened. I just know that there's a person. So I don't know. But if I immediately say the neighbor did it, like, I have no justification for that. I have no evidence for that. I can say that, and I can even have faith that the neighbor did it. But that doesn't mean he did, right? How about the neighbor's at home, right? The neighbor was at home at the time. That still doesn't mean he did it. Well, how about the neighbor didn't like the guy that is on the floor? Well, that's suspicious, but it doesn't mean he did it. And so we can say all these evidences that people have for God, like I was saved in a car crash. Okay, but how does that point to a God? Like, yes, I agree. Maybe this guy should have died in a car crash. I don't know. I didn't see it. Maybe he wasn't wearing a seatbelt. Maybe he got tossed and turned and should have died from the impact. I don't know. But let's say that's the case. So what evidence points to it must have been an angel that he says? Because here's the deal. If I believed in fairies, right? Fairies are my thing. If I believed in fairies, I would just say the fairies saved me instead of angels or God or Jehovah or whatever. I would just say it's the fairies because that's what I believe. But it doesn't matter what you believe. What does the evidence say? And from what the story he told, there is no evidence to point out why he didn't end up dying. I'm glad he didn't. Let me get that straight. I don't want anybody to die. And so I'm glad he didn't. But that doesn't tell me why he didn't. So I just wanted to share that one with you. Let's see. I want to share, well, that's kind of the same story. I want to share this one. This is kind of a misconception about why people do not follow Christianity or believe Christianity.
You're willing to die on 1,000% of the time.
The reason most people choose not to believe in God has very little.
Okay, so first of all, the reason most people choose not to believe in God, we don't choose not to believe in God. I never woke up one day and was like, you know what? I'm going to choose not to believe in God today. Like, just like I never chose to believe in God. Like, I was told that God existed and I was convinced. Like, I believed him. I didn't choose to believe. I simply believed because I wasn't thinking critically at the time. Like, I fully believed what this pastor was telling me. And so I believed, right? And so we don't choose to believe or not to believe. I never chose not to believe. I'm simply not convinced. And so I don't like that to begin with.
Little to do with science and everything to do with the inclination of their heart. Every single time I've had a personal debate about why God exists with people who don't believe in him has ended up in moral arguments. What I mean by that is once I present the scientific data, they decide not to pursue that.
So, yeah, the moral argument, I don't understand. I think he's talking about, like, the morality of the Bible. Like, let's say slavery is condoned, or that God is genocidal, especially if you want to count the flood where he drowns literally everybody but these 8 people. So if he's pointing to morality, I think that's maybe where he's going with this, but let's keep listening.
Route. And instead they choose to attack from a philosophical perspective. Basically saying that if they were God, they would not be running the show like this. But that's not really relevant, is it?
I agree. He's absolutely right. It is not relevant at all to the conversation. It doesn't matter. Like, let's say God did exist, right? And let's say he's not running it like I thought he should. That has nothing to do with whether he exists or not. There's things that the government does that I hate. Like, that doesn't mean that they don't exist. Like, I wish there were laws that I could break. I wish I could go into Ross or Walmart and just take anything off the shelf. Like, obviously. But that doesn't mean I just don't think the police exist anymore and just do what I want. Like, that has nothing to do with the claim there is a God and me rejecting that claim or not being convinced of that claim. I hope that makes sense. But he's right. It is not relevant at all.
They're not like the way that things are. At the center of it all boils down to this. It's much easier to deny a God you disagree with than it is to acknowledge him and recognize that you're not in charge and that there is a higher path to follow.
Prove it. Like, that's all I'm asking for here. Just prove it. Like, you keep saying, talking to this guy, you keep saying, like, there is a God and I don't like what he does, which is true. I don't like what the God of the Bible does or did, supposedly. But I will say, like, that has nothing to do with whether or not he exists or not. And so that's not why I choose not to believe. I simply do not think that the story of Jesus actually happened. I do not think he resurrected. I do not think that the flood story even happened. I do not think the majority of stuff in the Bible was not true. So that's why I'm not convinced that it's true. It has nothing to do with morality or even science. Like, even if science, even if there was no science, you would still have to show evidence for why you believed there is a God. You know, like, it has nothing to do with science, morality, even. It has everything to do with the evidence. Now, sure, there are philosophical arguments that you can go into back and forth of, you know, why would God do this? Why would God do that? But that has no relevance on, is it true? And how do we know? So,
because at the end of the day, when you study science and morality, it all points back to God.
Maybe for him it points back to God. Honestly, when I study science and I study morality, I see it further and further away from the God of the Bible. I found this funny, and this is probably going to be one of my last videos. I'll probably do one more after this, but I just thought this was funny, so I wanted to share.
How old is everyone here, by the way? 22.
Every Christian waiting for marriage. So these guys are all together, presumably on a YouTube show or a TV show, and they're saying how old they are, and they're waiting for marriage.
23. I'm 32. 32. Respect to you, man, for waiting.
3, 2, and you ain't never.
Wait, let's talk about that though. Because if you are not married by 32, you will still be a virgin, correct?
Yeah, but my God, he didn't do me like that. My God loves me.
How old is everyone here? By the way?
So I just thought that was funny. You know, we read Bible stories of, you know, these people that God smited or the enemies of God. And have you ever noticed that, like, nobody ever considers them? Like, God loves them. And so he wouldn't do me like that. I just thought that was funny when I watched it. So I wanted to share with you guys. All right, so we'll watch probably one more and then we'll move on to the rest of our night. We're going to do two more. This one's really short, and then we're going to go to a long one to end. Okay?
Don't marry him.
So this girl is just minding her own business up in here, and she says, God, don't marry him.
What?
Don't marry him.
Why?
Why? You know why. Don't.
Okay, so don't marry him. Why? You know why. I couldn't agree more. Like, she knows why. It's in her brain. Like, she sees red flags. She knows that maybe she shouldn't marry this guy. And so if I believe in fairies and my consciousness or whatever, my inner brain is telling me maybe I shouldn't marry this guy, I'm going to say that's the fairies telling me I shouldn't marry him, right? And so people do the same thing with God. So, yeah, I just want to throw that one out there. This is my last one. This is Frank Turek. If you don't know who Frank Turek is, he is a Christian apologist, and he mainly deals with the philosophy aspect of apology. And so, yeah, he's not a hard hitter dealing with theology and other stuff like that, but he's definitely one of the more popular ones. So let's hear him.
How do we know Christianity is true? 4 points. Truth exists. If somebody says there's no truth, you simply ask them, is that true? That's a
Okay, so the first one here, there is truth, right? That truth is objective. And I would say, what do you mean by that? Like there is reality, but what do you mean by there is truth? There's just reality, and we're discovering reality. And if you are lined up with reality, then something is true. If you're not lined up with reality, then it's false. So what do you mean by, truth? But he tries to, this is one of his things that he does. He always tries to, instead of answering a question, he will turn it back on the person answering the question and try to stumble them. This is one of the tactics that he uses. He uses it a lot. I've watched a lot of his videos and debates and all that. So this is one thing he does, but let me play that again.
4 points. Truth exists.
And say my thing would be what is that? What do you mean by that? I would love to have a conversation with him about this.
If somebody says there's no truth, you simply ask them, is that true?
So there is no truth. All I would simply say, like I said, does it line up with reality? That is what we consider to be true. Does it not line up with reality? That is false. So I don't know what he's getting at.
Second question, does God exist?
But boy, if we can answer that one.
Obviously, if there's a creation there.
And I've heard this one a million times. If there's a creation, there has to be a creator, right? If there's a building, there has to be a builder. If there's an art or a painting, there has to be an artist. So we know that every building has a builder. We know that. We know that every painter or painting has a painter, right? We know these things. My question is, how do you know that this is a creation? You're saying creation, inferring that there is a creator. It's called a presupposition. You're saying there's a creator, so this must be a creation. And then saying, well, this is a creation, so there must be a creator. If you start with that, then sure, you can call it a creation. But how can you tell the difference between a man-made dam with wood versus a natural dam made of flowing river, right? You can't. Natural dams look just like one with beavers that make the dams, right? And so let me rephrase that. You have a beaver dam, and then you have a natural dam that forms naturally from flowing water. They look identical. So how can you tell the difference between one that is created by the beavers and one that is not created, necessarily creation, but it naturally came about? There is no difference. And so if you want to say, builders make buildings, you can't say beavers make dams. Yes, they do, but all dams don't come from beavers, if that makes sense. We don't know where universes come from. How do we know that they're not universal creating fairies? We don't know. Remember that circle I talked about earlier? We don't know. It could be universe creating fairies. We don't know. And so, or it could be that there are multiple universes and they keep coming out. We don't know. So why are you saying there has to be a creator when we don't know?
There has to be a creator, and even atheists are admitting
No atheist is admitting that there is a creation.
There's a creation. Even Stephen Hawking famous.
Okay, so he said even atheists are admitting there's a creation with no evidence saying that. And then he goes into, also Stephen Hawking said, who is an atheist, I'll give him that, but he says this.
Said almost everyone now believes that the universe and time itself had a beginning at the Big Bang.
Okay, yes, the universe had a beginning. Nowhere did Stephen Hawking say the universe was created. This universe that we know of, that we live in, had a beginning. It's a scientific fact. Yes. But what was before that universe, or before this universe? What happened right before nobody knows. And probably nobody ever will know. But what happened before this universe came about? Nobody knows. So you can't just say, well, Creator did it, God did it. Where is the evidence that points to that? You can't just say that because that's what you've been taught, if that makes sense. So this is called a God of the Gaps argument. It's used a lot. It's kind of like saying, back in the day they would say, well, where else could lightning come from? It comes from the sky. God's in the sky. We don't know how lightning gets here, so it must be God sending down lightning. Therefore, Zeus, right? We don't know where thunder comes from, therefore, Thor. So, but you can't just make up stuff because, as we know now, lightning is formed naturally. Thunder is formed naturally. Nobody creates it. It happens naturally. So, yeah.
Well, if the universe had a beginning, space-time and matter literally came into existence out of nothing, would ever...
No, that's not... How do you know that? Like I said before, we don't know what was before this universe. We don't know if there's a universe that collapsed onto itself, created other universes. As far as we know, there could be universes that spout from existence out of nowhere. Even now, in far outer parts of the universe, and this is getting way over my head, but there are particles that pop into existence and out of existence even now that we know of. At least there's nothing, or what we would consider nothing, and then particles start popping into existence out of nowhere. You can look this stuff up. It happens. So how do we know that didn't happen, and we're just one big part of that? We don't know. And so for you just to say, there had to be somebody to create it all, it doesn't follow logically.
Created space-time and matter, made it space-time and matter. The cosmos be spaceless, timeless, immaterial, powerful to create the universe out of nothing, personal in order to create, and also have a mind in order to have the ability to make a choice. Now, when you think about a spaceless, timeless, immaterial, powerful, personal, intelligent cause, who do you think of?
I think of the universe creating fairies. That's exactly who I think of. Thank you, Frank.
What's a hill? What's a hip?
Sorry, I lost where I was at.
How do we know
There we go.
Christianity's
Yeah, let's go back.
You think about a
Timeless, immaterial, powerful, personal, intelligent cause,
Who do you think of?
universal,
That would be like
creating
God.
fairies.
Third question,
Exactly.
are miracles possible? Obviously,
Are miracles possible? We looked at some TikToks from miracles tonight, so maybe they are.
Christianity can't be true if miracles are not possible. But the greatest miracle in the Bible has already occurred. The creation of the universe out of nothing.
Okay, so I love this right here. So Christians will use, not even Christians, like the majority of all major religions, like in fact, all major religions that I know of use like the second law of thermodynamics, that something can't come from nothing, essentially. Like everything that it is breaking down. So you can't take something from nothing, right? You can't create something from nothing. And so I love how Christians will say, how do you get something from nothing? Is that where atheists think we all come from? No, that's not what we think. But what you are saying is that we came from nothing. So why are you calling us out on saying, we're coming from nothing when that's not even what we're saying? When you're admitting there was nothing and then God created something. So, yeah.
Even atheists again are admitting the universe had a beginning.
I agree with that. Atheists following along with science, with the evidence, the universe did have a beginning. I completely agree with that. What he should be saying is science says that the universe had a beginning. Not atheists saying that. We don't just believe that. That's what science says. Like it's a fact at this point.
Now they don't think it's God, but what else could it be?
What else could it be? It could be the universe creating fairies. How does he not know this? Come on, Frank.
Space, matter, and time had a beginning out of nothing. The fourth question after truth, after miracles, is did Jesus really rise from the dead?
Now this is the part that because this goes straight to Christianity, right? The others could be used for any religion, but this one specifically is for Christianity.
Question. What would Jews, believers in Yahweh, why would they invent to resurrect Jesus?
The same reason every other god was invented.
They already thought they were God's chosen. Why would they say a man claimed to be God and rose from the dead if it would get them tortured and killed? Which is
because they believed what Jesus said. If he in fact did say them. If Jesus did come to the earth, let's say, and I'm willing for the sake of argument to say Jesus was a real person, right? Let's say he did come here and he did say, hey, I am the king of the earth, or I'm son of God. I'm here not to abolish the law, but to fulfill the law. I'm here to love you. I'm here to reconcile you back to the Father, right? And in 3 days, I'm going to die, okay? Like, how many people from Heaven's Gates, if you don't know what Heaven's Gate is, it's a cult that they only had a small amount of people, but they thought that aliens were going to come and get them. And so they had to commit suicide in order for aliens to come and get them. And so what did they do? Sure enough, they committed suicide. All but one person committed suicide so that the aliens would come and get them because they were the chosen people, right? Somebody came and they said these things and people believed them and they ended up killing themselves. So you can say, okay, Jesus was here and he claimed these things, but did he actually do it? That's what I want to know. And so why would they say these things? Because they believed the man. That's not far off.
What it did. They wouldn't. Look, the New Testament writers did not create the resurrection created the New Testament.
Again, that's coming from a presuppositionalist. You already believe this, so you're just saying it at this point.
Writers. You wouldn't have documents written by Jews in the first century claiming a man to be God.
There are literally thousands of texts of men claiming to be God. Literally thousands of even Mormonism, Joseph Smith, like, he didn't claim to be God, sure, but he claimed to have revelation from God through golden tablets. And this is like less than 200 years ago. Like, come on, Frank.
And then rose from the dead, unless a man claimed to be God and rose from the dead. And if Jesus really did rise from the dead, whatever he teaches is...
So basically what he's saying is, because people wrote about it, that it must be true, and supposedly they died for it, which it's not really confirmed. 3 of them is confirmed, 5 is plausible, the rest we don't even know about. And so why did they do it? Because they believed it. But that doesn't mean it actually happened. Again, back to the Joseph Smith thing. People wrote about him. People believed it. People still believe it to this day. And people are living it out and have just as much faith in that as you do in what you believe in. Does it make it true? No. So Frank is basically saying because people wrote it, it makes it true, which is a sad argument.
True. Jesus taught the entire Old Testament as the Word of God, and he promised the New Testament. So on Jesus' authority, a man who claimed to be God and proved it by rising from the dead, we know the Bible's true.
Okay, so yeah, I don't really know what to make of that. That really proved nothing. It just claimed everything that he believes, and he just claimed it over and over. So, yeah, I think that's going to be all for tonight. It is 10 o'clock on the dot, and that's where I want to end it. So I do want to say thank you for staying in. Nobody called tonight, which is fine. I like just getting on here and chatting with y'all anyways. In fact, I'm going to take this off right here. I just like coming on here and chatting with you guys and sharing a little bit about why I cannot accept the Bible as true. You know, I wish I could. I wish that there was an afterlife, and there may be. Not saying not. But nevertheless, just wanted to share my heart with you guys. I love you guys. Thank y'all for staying and watching all this with me. I will see y'all next week. Bye.